Final score, Florida 79, Auburn 73. Guess who was the star? Yep, Walter Clayton Jr. Took 18 shots, made 11 of them, finished with 34 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists in 35 minutes. As you know by now, probably, he got 30 in an Elite Eight win over Texas, which means Walter Clayton Jr., a zero-star recruit coming out of high school who started his college career at Iona, is now the first player to score at least 30 points in back-to-back Elite Eight games and a national semifinal since a fella named Larry Bird did it back in 1979. So Florida is in the national title game for the third time this century. The previous 3 trips belonged to Billy Donovan. This one belongs to Todd Golden. Norlander, please provide your thoughts on Florida over Auburn, because in some ways that was also a come-from-behind victory.
It was a come-from-behind victory. It was the first time this season Auburn led by 5+ points at halftime and blew the game. They had been up by 5 or more at halftime 25 times before this season. They had won all of those games. Florida had not been faced with a halftime deficit in more than a month. It comes back, it gets it done. Pretty interesting people that were in the house to watch Walter Clayton do his thing tonight. One, Rick Pitino. I got a quote from him that's in my column that honestly feels like it was filed 7 hours ago at this point. Obviously, Pitino coached him at Iona. Also in the building tonight, Billy Donovan. And the last time Florida got to a national title game, Billy Donovan was the coach, so that is fitting. Honored with the Hall of Fame. Also honored with the Hall of Fame, Carmelo Anthony. How does he play into this? Tonight, Walter Clayton Jr. became the first player to get at least 30 in a semifinal, a national semifinal, since none other than Carmelo Anthony. And this might be the first semifinal that Carmelo has been in the building for since he played for Syracuse. So that's kind of a wild coincidence there. How about the fact that Cooper Flagg and Janai Broome were the National Player of the Year race for 5 months? Neither one makes the title game, but the clear-cut third best player in the country is going to play on Monday night. That's kind of cool for him. And he's been tremendous. He's also one of only 5 players to ever go for 30 in back-to-back games this deep into the tournament, joining Bird, but also like Wilt Chamberlain's on that list. Jerry West is on that list. Like it's ridiculous what he was able to do. And, you know, the column that I wrote in part was about, hey, listen, for the entire season, it was a 2-man race, and fairly so. But Clayton, by nature of doing what he's done here, has put his name, if not entirely on the level, like in that same grouping. He was a unanimous first-team All-American here at CBS Sports, and what he did and how he took over 20 points in the second half. We'll get to Auburn in just a second. Mighty impressive. It wasn't all him. I think Elijah Martin might have tilted the axis of the planet with his dunk in the second half, which was the dunk of the season as far as I'm concerned. And we've had some awesome ones. Grant Nelson, I see you. I know. But that was incredible. And that came after he skied for one, 4 or 5 minutes in real time before that. Mighty impressive. By the way, so I'm sitting here at my press seat, and I have picked against Florida in the Sweet 16. I had Maryland. I picked against them in the Elite Eight. I had Texas Tech. And I picked against them here. I had Auburn. And so I interviewed Golden on HQ after, and he said this on HQ, which is true. I had not revealed this because it wasn't mine. He has texted me the screen grab of Florida's final scores after these, and one of them has come within literally I think it was the Texas Tech one. It must have come within 2 minutes of him finishing his press conference. So he does the interview right here, and I'm typing, and I'm right here, and I hear Norlander, pick against us again. You better be picking against. He's screaming it at me, to the point where I thought it was going to be picked up on the broadcast here. Later, fellas. Deal 68 crews out of here. And it was
how many of them are there? Jesus Lord.
I know. We run a 3-man. They've got a militia over there.
What
do you want from me?
People.
I know. But it was.
You ever imagine me trying to talk with that many people? I go crazy.
Forget about it. So Todd Golden, I mean, GP, when I tell you he was yelling it at me, in a good-natured way, but I'm sitting right, I'm right. You can't really tell, but I'm right next to, that's Iron Eagle. Great, that's their spot right there. So I'm right next to the broadcast crew. So I'm right here, and he's screaming it at me. And I'm like, I'll pick again. We'll preview tomorrow. Yeah. I'm going to abide by his wishes. I'm picking Houston to beat Florida. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it again, and I will have to eat it. But I thought Tony Bennett practically running me over in the Elite Eight to get to his father was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me on the court, technically, at a game. Golden just screaming at the top of his lungs for me to pick against him again. And there's like so many people around when he's doing this. It was just, he was unhinged in a good way. And then he was a good sport to come on HQ afterward. But congrats to Florida, the Gators fans, for getting here. You were the 4th 1 seed overall. From a resume standpoint, you had a very compelling case to be even higher. Whatever. You had the toughest region. You got through it. Clayton's incredible. Elijah Martin has a chance to win a national championship after missing that chance at FAU. Again, we'll get to Auburn in just a second, but I was in awe of how they were able to change everything and shut down Broome entirely, who was clearly bothered. Clearly an issue and restricted him and held him back. And then Florida's bigs got their act together and they took it away. So it's your turn to talk here. Your thoughts on what went down in the early tip.
First, I just love that story about Todd. I like him having fun with this. I like him texting you that stuff. I much prefer it to the coaches who say, I didn't see anything. I didn't read anything. I didn't hear that. I don't know. Every one of these, not every one of these guys, there are guys who really don't hear and see anything. But most of them, when you hear them say that, they're not telling the truth. And I like that Todd's like, I'm watching you guys pick against me all the time. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. We'll keep making you look wrong. All right. I love it. Fans do the same thing too. And it's fine. Like, whatever. I can ignore that just like I can ignore anything else. But I think sometimes fans read way more into it than there is. It's like, oh, you picked against Florida again. Yeah, there's 2 teams in front of me. I picked the wrong one. Most people aren't great at picking games. Trust me, if I ever got great at picking games, I would quit podcasting in the middle of the night and just bet all day long, and we'd be great. You just pick a win. Hey, there's 2 teams, pick one. Okay. And then sometimes you're wrong. It doesn't mean you don't think Florida's awesome. Florida is what I think like 17-1 in their past 18 games now.
Yes.
11 game winning streak.
Yes.
Coming out of the toughest conference in the history of college basketball. Anybody trying to tell you Florida isn't anything but awesome is crazy. They're awesome. I've said it all week long. There is no combination of outcomes that would be surprising to me. Any of these 4 teams were capable of winning the national championship, Florida included. And if you say that about Florida, you are publicly acknowledging you think they can beat Auburn and whoever else they have to play on Monday night. So Florida is awesome, but anytime you are presented with the game, you have to pick it. And, somebody's always going to be on the wrong side of that. And what I've learned is that fans tend to focus on exactly what Florida fans are focusing on right now. I would just say, please don't take it personally. Your team is awesome, but Norlander's already picked Houston on Monday night, and if you want a spoiler alert, I probably will too.
Okay, fair enough. But you have time to change it. I took Houston on selection Sunday night, and I'm not gonna swap from that. So we'll see if that comes to be. Before we get to Auburn, Clayton's performance to me, and it's way too late. I know you haven't thought about it, but it ranks them in the past 15 to 20 years. It ranks on a short-ish list. I'm not going to say that's like 3 names deep or 5 names deep, but what he did here to beat a 1 seed, down 8 at the break, and to lift this team, it was mostly him. Elijah Martin had 17. Thomas Houck had a couple of really good plays. He had a sick block. He had finished with 12 and 7 boards. Like, Houck had himself a night. Chinelu and Will Richard were not especially loud overall, though Chinelu was good on the boards there. But the Clayton thing was really cool for him. An example, and there's plenty of them, I get all that, but whereas on the Houston side, yeah, you've got a couple of transfers, but a lot of it's homegrown, so to speak. Clayton comes by way of Iona, and he was on the team that got knocked out of the tournament by UConn a couple years ago, and I remember hearing about just like how he in that moment, like, he still didn't feel like he was enough, like he had just been as good as he needed to be. And for him now to get this attached to his reputation forever, no matter what happens on Monday night, is a pretty awesome thing. I mean, he is a stud, and he just hits so many tough shots. It's just not how he scores or that he scores. It is how he does it. And it just has a knack for hitting big bucket after big bucket. So I was really impressed by him. I'm sure you agree. Let's talk Auburn.
Let me just say one thing on that.
Go ahead.
And I'll be real quick. What it reminded me of, and let me start by saying I am not comparing these 2 players in any way other than in the way I'm specifically doing it, You know what it reminded me of? 2008, Steph Curry bombs on Georgetown, ends the great Roy Hibbert's college career. And then you get this whole week of a buildup of like, my God, Steph Curry, incredible shot maker. Oh, wow. Did you see that? Let's talk about this guy. Why haven't we been talking about this guy nonstop all season long? And there's a big buildup to this moment. And then Wisconsin, he delivered again. Just did it again. Wow. No letdown. Just go. That different places in the bracket, but the same kind of thing. Walter Clayton didn't really become Walter Clayton, third best player in the sport, until about a week and a half ago. You know, it took a while till that was a consensus opinion. And you get all of this attention, more attention than you've ever received in your whole life. How are you going to respond? Can you do it again? Buddy, he delivered even better. He was awesome. And I was about to say something stupid, so I'll just stop. I was about to say, if you're wondering how Florida has a chance, period. All right, period. Yeah. Walter Clayton does not have to be a superstar for Florida to have a chance against Houston. But what gives them the best chance is they got a guy who can take tough shots and make them. And you know, he's been incredible. He's having an all-time run by a guard in this NCAA tournament, and particularly when you bring up the context of his college career, where he started, where he was coming out of high school. This is pretty remarkable stuff.
Auburn Tigers finished the season 32-6. This was a team that was at one point 27-2, went on to go 5-4 down the stretch over the final 9 games. And so the stat we mentioned on Selection Sunday remains true. There still has never been a team to lose at least 3 of its final 4 games heading into the tournament and go on to win the NCAA championship. Auburn had lost 3 of 4 heading into Selection Sunday. Small picture, big picture, GP, right back to you. What do you make of what you saw from Auburn on Saturday night? And what do you make of the Tigers overall this season? This was a team that through the first 3 months was pretty definitively the best team in college basketball. It gets a 1 seed, it makes a Final Four, but it gives up a lead at halftime and winds up losing 79-73.
I think they had a great season, and then I think their best player got hurt. I think that's what happened. I think they had a great season, and their best player got hurt. And I know they lost 3 of 4 heading into the NCAA tournament, but as we've talked about a million times, I think that was more than anything a byproduct of they took their foot off the gas. They wrapped up everything they needed to wrap up. Everybody was telling them they've wrapped up everything they needed to wrap up. They were already outright SEC champs, already in a position to get the number 1 overall seed. I think they took their foot off the gas, and then they had to go to Texas A&M, and they got popped. And then they had to come home and play Alabama, and then they got in overtime. And then they had to go play Tennessee, and they played 4 good teams, really, when you count Ole Miss. And they took their foot off the gas, and just doing that a little bit in that league was enough to make you start losing games. But let's not ever forget, they did bounce back and beat Creighton, and then beat the Big Ten tournament champs, and then beat the outright Big Ten champs. And while they were beating the outright Big Ten champs, Jani Broome had an elbow injury. And they talked all week about how he's fine and he's good, and he wasn't. He just wasn't. He got tired, and he didn't look comfortable. There was, I think, the Elijah Martin dunk. That was a loose ball situation.
Yes.
And he looked slow to get there.
Yes.
And uncomfortable reaching for it. And it led to a transition dunk. And that was a moment, and not the first, that was like maybe the last, but it was a moment where it was like, he's not okay. He's not okay. He got worn down, and he was never comfortable. And he did pretty much nothing in the second half.
Yeah, he finished with 15 points, 6 of 14 from the field, had 7 rebounds. I mean, he had a couple of his, he had a certain style about him, a certain rhythm, and he got a couple of those kind of signature Broome buckets. But it was on this end in the first half. I want to say it was in the first 4 minutes. He took a weird, an aggressive cut. It might have been Houck, and he grimaced immediately.
Right.
And I was like, oh. Just like that quickly. It was a problem. Even if he was fully healthy, it's conceivable Florida would have still won for sure. I want to give the Gators credit for that. Chad Baker-Mazzaro finishes with 18. He had 4 triples, had himself a nice game. Miles Kelly had a couple of good buckets. Overall, Florida was able to peel off another big run. This is a team that has been now against UConn, against Texas Tech, and against Auburn. It has, lived with a little more drama than other teams, and nothing wrong with that. Houston had its fair doses of drama tonight as well. But Auburn needed Broom at 100% or pretty close to it. And frankly, I don't think he was even above 75% in this game. They did downplay it going into the week. I understand why they did that. Hell, they might have been hopeful that he was going to put on a Superman level performance. That was just not going to happen at all. He was shut down. And the fact that he was ineffective in the second half really spelled doom for Auburn more than anything else. They had a couple of moments where it's like, okay, maybe they've got a chance, the right bucket here. But frankly, there was just Clayton got him time and time again. Then, as I mentioned before, Houck had a couple of good plays. But Auburn fans, one hell of a season. You've seen your program make the Final Four 2 times since 2019, thanks to Bruce Pearl. I know you get to the stage, you get even hungrier to finally, win a national championship. Hell, maybe that could still happen under Pearl. But big picture, yeah, this is bitter. Maybe there's some tiny bit of solace. Like if you're gonna get knocked out, it's against a fellow SEC team. We'll see if they can go out and finish the job for the conference on Monday night or not. But overall, yeah, Auburn was a team that showed us its best in the first 2-3 months of the season, and it would look good in the tournament up until now. Don't get me wrong, but ultimately, everyone but one's got to go down. And to be one of the last 4 standing in an all-4 1-seed Final Four, something to be proud of. And frankly, I don't look at it this way, but you and I both know this is the case. Like Auburn had the earlier game. It's not Duke. Duke lost in dramatic fashion. And from a broad coverage perspective, like Auburn's, and nor should it, it's just going to take no slack for losing this game. Like all the attention is going to be how Houston pulled it off and how Duke blew it. Auburn's going to be, they had an awesome season. They won the SEC. They were a 1 seed, and they lost to Florida in a competitive game, and that's it. So there's no egg on the collective face of Tiger Nation, so to speak, in my opinion.
Not at all, because and you had it right earlier when you said even if Jabri Broom's healthy, Florida could have beaten them. I mean, Janai Broom was healthy in February, and Florida beat them.
Yeah,
so of course, but if you're Bruce Pearl or Janai Broom or anybody connected to that Auburn program, whether it's true or not, you can always say to yourself, man, if Janai didn't hurt his elbow, we'd have been fine. Man, we just got bad luck. Oh, that was so unfortunate. You always got that to make you feel better. The Duke doesn't have that. Duke is just like, man, we were up 9 points with 2 minutes to go, and it got away from us. So absolutely, I promise you, neither John Shire nor Bruce Pearl are happy tonight, but one of them is wearing this in an entirely different way than the other one, I would assume.
I agree with you entirely.